The ruins of the 4,000-year-old city of Mohenjo daro cast a spell over the surrounding area. Villagers tell stories, true or not, about the site. One of the most dramatic is about an ancient ruler.
There was a king of Mohenjo daro. He was very cruel and he was very powerful and he was very lusty. Whenever there was a wedding, the king used to sleep with the bride during the first night. So this continued from day to day, from weeks to weeks, from months to months, from years to years. One day, the daughter of the king's sister was married. So the king started preparing himself for the occasion. The bride started praying to gods and goddesses of the valley to come and save her. When the king entered, he was entering. 1 feet was into the house, one was outside the door. Then, due to the prayers of that bride, all of the city was destroyed. This story has come due to some exchange of ideas from Mesopotamia. The same story is found in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
How did I get hooked on this ancient city? I first came here in the early 70s on a school trip with the 9th grade class at the American school in Islamabad. Our host was classmate Shahnawaz Bhutto, the Prime Minister's son, whose ancestral lands were just a few miles away. With me was my first Kodak Instamatic camera. What I remember most was the empty streets which the people living here seemed to have just left. Who were those people? At the time of ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and China, a civilization bigger than all of them combined arose in the ancient Indus Valley. Mohenjo daro and Harappa were its first cities. Mohenjo daro is by far the most impressive, the source of half of all undeciphered seals, the flagship city. But my first Indus city was Harappa. As a kid, I visited many times. My favorite great-uncle Hafiz and Auntie Samia lived just a few miles away. The silence of these ruins gripped me too, but they faded away with my childhood. In 1995, after moving to San Francisco from Pakistan, I wanted to build a website. I remembered how much I loved those ruins when I was a kid, so I chose Harappa.com as the domain name. I liked the ancient ring of the word Harappa at the heart of the new. But it was mostly my personal historical collection, not ancient Indus stuff, that I put on the site. I didn't think much more about it. Within weeks, I got an email from Dr. Richard Meadow introducing the Harappa Archaeological Research Project. Did I know about them? He copied Dr. Mark Kenoyer, co-director. I said, why don't we work together? Mark responded with a 90-slide set he wanted me to put up on this new thing, the internet. I was young and I had no idea what I was getting into. Thousands of pages and 30 years later, Harappa.com has become the leading website on the ancient Indus civilization, thanks to contributions from major scholars, especially Mark, the world's leading ancient Indus archaeologist. My role is that of an informed detective, sharing an obsession with thousands of people a day. Just before coming to Mohenjo daro, I spoke at a conference in Chennai, India. It was the 100th anniversary of John Marshall announcing the discovery of the ancient Indus civilization.
I'm not a scholar myself of the ancient Indus Valley. I'm somebody who's really interested in learning about it and have been drawn into it and just trying to understand more about this really enigmatic but incredibly important civilization to the world.
A century has elapsed, but we still do not know a single word, name, ruler, not even the religion or language spoken. Yet deep in South India, many Tamils are convinced that their culture originated in Mohenjo daro, beyond national borders only established in 1947. Here, the first urban South Asian civilization flourished some 4,000 years ago.
Early morning, I got up as bright as I could and rushed, and it was magnificent. It was absolutely magnificent. I just stood there and stood there and stood there and thought how wonderful it must have been to have lived in this city.
We have excavated only 8% of Mohenjo daro. Still 92% is unexcavated.
"52 years after I first visited, I was stunned by the size and organization of the city. In fact, the famous priest king was discovered far from the so-called Stupa mound. We have no idea who he was. One cannot help but wonder how much of the city was found and then lost again over 4,000 years.
Local people, these old laborers, they say, when we were finding some golden objects or jewelry we were taking in our pocket to home, because at that time English people were paying only 2 annas. It was 1/8 part of the 1 rupee for 1 day, so we didn't give them the golden jewelry.
तो हमें तो पता ही नहीं था ये सील्स है क्या नहीं। तो हम बच्चे होते थे छोटे, तो सील्स पे जो है ना जैसे ठप्पे रांद खेलते, सील्स पे ऐसे जो है ना वो पाँव लगाते थे, खेलते थे बच्चे।
Mohenjo daro was not so dirty. The city is known today for the finest sanitation system of the times: covered drains on streets, second-floor bathrooms, and pipes that flowed into them across town. The city had hundreds of wells. The German archaeologist Michael Janssen used the term Wasserluxus, or the luxury of water. The Great Bath is probably the finest aquatic achievement of the Bronze Age. Peering inside the giant drain from the Great Bath made me wonder, who cleaned these drains? Certainly, there is evidence for social separation. Like at Harappa, areas of town are walled off from each other, suggesting a tribe or crafts guild in each. First Street ran along a whole perimeter of the city. Some archaeologists believe there were stores and workshops along the way. There is little doubt that many kinds of people lived here, from fishmongers to goldsmiths, from potters and cloth merchants to dealers in things we cannot yet name. Whoever they were, they certainly spoiled their children. It is not clear if any other Bronze Age city yielded as many toys per excavated square meter. Some, like the bird whistle, are still common in villages today, and only a playful people would make bird cages which show birds climbing out. The evidence is that they played lots of games. Look at this. Even I found a die lying on the ground. Did any of the world's games originate here? Some say it was a peaceful, egalitarian civilization. I have never bought that story. There is plenty of evidence for elites, like large homes and extravagant jewelry, even weapons and conflict. But signs of militarism, unlike in its neighbors at the same time, are limited. Both iconic figures of the Indus civilization were found in Mohenjo daro. The dancing girl may be more famous than the priest king. Some question whether the dancing girl was a dancing girl, but I'm pretty convinced, given how well her hand-on-hip pose has endured.
Have you looked at the dancing girl? Is she dancing?
You don't think the dancing girl was dancing?
Of course not. The Edwardians, they thought that women of loose virtue were there to dance to entertain the British troops.
Mark would agree that the dancing girl is a colonial prejudice. He prefers pujari, the performance of religious rites, as the possible purpose of the Mohenjo daro figurine. We see the past through the colored bits of glass that catch our eye today. A lesser-known second dancer was also found in Mohenjo daro. Maybe these women did more than dance. In early tribal Indian societies, there are stories of dancers who ruled. At independence, one of these two figurines ended up in India, the other in Pakistan. When British India was split into India and Pakistan in August 1947, the new countries divided up their Indus artifacts. The finest necklace from Mohenjo daro was cut into two pieces, one part today in Islamabad, the other half in Delhi. In fact, many of the most important objects were shipped to India. Hardly was the 4,000-year-old civilization discovered than it was divided. On high ground overlooking the city is the best-known part, the so-called Stupa mound. It has a Buddhist structure from the 2nd or 3rd century ACE. A big controversy is whether it was a holy site in Indus times as well. The original excavator, R.D. Banerjee, discovered thousands of votive-style pots, just the kinds of things one would deposit at a holy site. However, the chief British excavator, Sir John Marshall, questioned this interpretation, as have others. In recent times, Dr. Giovanni Verardi agreed with Banerjee. He argued that this was a religious site in Indus times as well, and suggested that steps once led upwards to a platform, much like the ziggurats in ancient Mesopotamia. This would have made the entire mound sacred. Then we come to the Great Bath, which most archaeologists do agree was a ritual space. We know that Hindu and Sikh temples today often have large water baths next to them. I think there's a profound connection, but not everyone would agree.
I think it was a royal investiture ritual. That someone went down the paths ritually in some way and came out again. There are only a restricted range of steps going down into the water tank, and they come out again. It's some heavy ritual.
If this entire area was in fact holy, it may support the idea that the founders of this city were priests, just as they were in early Mesopotamian cities. Among the very few sculptures found in Indus cities, almost all of them at Mohenjo daro, a priestly style dominates. Hair is knotted in the back, with one hand on the knee. A similar figure was also found in Dholavira. Another Italian archaeologist, Massimo Vidale, points out that similar priestly figures were present at this time in Iran and Afghanistan. My late friend Airavata Mahadevan was India's leading expert on the Indus script.
This sign, popularly called the jar sign, is the most frequent one in the Indus script. In the Indian tradition, the ruling classes, the princes and the priests, they always claim to have come from a jar. All the major rishis were jar born.
Many Indus signs combine the priestly jar motif with possible trade symbols. Did priests control trade? Religion and commerce were inseparable in later Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu traditions. More evidence comes from these mysterious, identically sized rooms. A similar structure was also found at Harappa. They are probably storerooms for trade, though not granaries, as was originally fantasized by an English archaeologist. In Mohenjo daro, they are right in the Citadel, next to the Great Bath itself. This suggests that trade was controlled by a religious elite. If so, how did they maintain order? Was it through violence? One of the most famous narrative seals from Mohenjo daro shows what could be the sacrifice of a human head. But another narrative seal from the city shows what some have called a proto-Shiva, Pashupati, or Lord of the Beasts figure, having animals come to him in peaceful submission. They could have represented different tribes, cities, or merchant guilds. I cannot imagine a city of this size not having had a strong ruling class or belief system. But without further research, what that was is very much up to our imaginations. And our imaginations can run riot, as they already do in the vicinity of Mohenjo daro. We don't even know what the word Mohenjo daro means. John Marshall said it meant Mound of the Dead.
जेके पुराणे ज़माने में माण्हू हूंदा उहे त चवंदा ही त क़ब्रिस्तान हेॾे न वञूं त माण्हू हितां लोकल माण्हू जेके काठियूं करण ईंदा सुकियूं पंहिंजो मानी पचाइण जे लाइ त बि उहे बि चवंदा त काठियूं न कयो, हितां होॾो आहे, क़ब्रिस्तान आहे। ऐं काफ़ी वारी माण्हू चवंदा इहे फिटियल शहर आहे, हेॾे वञण बि गुनाह हुआ।
What does Mohenjo daro mean in your opinion? Is it mound of the dead or no? What is your interpretation?
No. Mohan is epithet of Krishna. Because of Hindu name, people don't like him here. So also for door, we say also Mohan. Mohan means in front. We say Mohan, Sa Mohan, in front. So Mohenjo daro means a city with a face.
Mohenjo daro is also a city of signs. We cannot yet read them. We do know that they helped weave an international trading network used by Indus merchants as they traveled to distant Mesopotamia.
Every Harappan of any consequence carried a seal on his person, strung it on a card and probably hung it round his neck, and used it to attest his documents, his sale, or the nobles their orders. In this sense, the seals of Harappa and Mohenjo daro are no different from those found in Sumerian, Akkadian, and Egyptian cities.
Seals were impressed on a lump of soft clay, placed over the knot of a cord, or directly onto a pot. The sealing acted as a mark of authority or ownership, identifying the responsible official, merchant, or institution. If we could understand the seals, we would know so much more about these people. Many scholars think the language was Proto-Dravidian, like those in South India today. In fact, a Dravidian language is spoken today not far from Mohenjo daro. Linguistic archaeology suggests that other languages in the larger region would have contributed to the ancient Indus language. In fact, many languages were probably spoken, just like every day in Mohenjo daro now, where one hears Sindhi, Saraiki, Baluchi, Urdu, English, Punjabi, and Pashto. A sandwich of origins and traditions. Not a monoculture, but a mega multiculture probably best explains the 700 years of Indus civilization. Was a single written language used by a ruling elite? A key figure on most seals from Mohenjo daro was the so-called unicorn, with one horn and a body unlike any single animal. It too remains a mystery. The unicorn may well have represented a combination of tribes, crafts, or regional groups. Most of the time, the unicorn is shown with a unique standard.
A mysterious cult object you find before the unicorn is a filter. It's made of three parts. You have an upper cylindrical vessel, a lower hemispherical vessel with holes like a colander, for example. And the whole thing is stuck on a staff. And the staff shows it was meant to be a standard to be carried in processions. It was a cult based upon some kind of a hallucinogenic drug, crushed and filtered out of plant and drunk ritually. Mr. Omar Khan, I must tell you that this is no more than a theory.
Narrative seals from Mohenjo daro must encode important myths. Many have tigers on them, once abundant in the Indus Valley. In Dholavira, a large signboard was found atop an entrance to the fortified city, strengthening my own feeling that the round circle is some sort of symbol of rule, if not also an actual spinning wheel, like Gandhi used. We suspect that textiles were a key part of the Indus economy. A different Buddhist wheel appears on today's Indian flag. Around 1900 BCE, the civilization seems to have disappeared. Many statues are defaced or headless, suggesting political or religious upheaval. Early archaeologists claimed massacres by invading Aryans, but the limited evidence from Mohenjo daro has been debunked. It was more likely a combination of climate change, internal problems, possibly disease, and the breakdown of trading networks. No certainty at all, but we do know that the unicorn vanished. So did writing for the next 1,000 years. Mohenjo daro, however, was not abandoned. It was settled by people of the Jukhar culture that followed for centuries, and then Buddhist rule. Just as their civilization was ending, ancient Indus people brought their seals to the Arabian Gulf. Many well-funded excavations are underway there today. I'm hopeful that they will find a bilingual inscription with Indus signs and those of another language. That would really help us decipher the script. I think that AI can also help us understand the writing. Prizes are being offered for decipherment, but there's no public database of inscriptions to test AI models against. The best we have is Mahadevan's from the 1970s. A dedicated German scholar, Dr. Andreas Fulz, maintains a much bigger database, but it is not properly resourced. There are thousands of uncatalogued inscriptions. The leading living scholar, the brilliant Finnish professor Asko Parpola, is 84 and has no heirs. Urban dust from 4,000 years ago is what we are breathing as we walk through the site today. Everyone agrees that the ancient Indus is the mother urban civilization in South Asia, but it took a while for Pakistan to embrace this heritage. The nation's founder never visited any Indus city. Here is my late friend, Dr. Dani, a Sanskrit scholar before partition and leading archaeologist afterwards.
Today, as far as Indus civilization is concerned, it is a part of the cultural and historical heritage of Pakistan.
In Pakistan today, Indus archaeology has become a source of pride. The Sindh and Punjab governments are investing more and more in preservation and excavation.
पहले पाकिस्तानी हम देखते नहीं थे इधर पाकिस्तान नहीं आते थे मोहनजो दड़ो में सारा जापान आते थे और गोरे आते थे तो हम कहते थे भाई पाकिस्तानी क्यों नहीं आते इसी को वैल्यू ही नहीं था ना फिर आस्ता आस्ता जो है ना तो आदमी बढ़ने लगा अभी गोरे कम हो गए पाकिस्तानी ज़्यादा हो गए.
The ironic legacy of partition is that the best-known Indus cities are in Pakistan, but the resources and broadest interest are in India.
अच्छा काफ़ी माण्हू जेके आहिनि इंडिया जा मुंहिंजे लाइ तमामु घणो सिकंदा आहिनि त पोइ उहे मूंखे कॉल करे वठंदा आहिनि यार असांखे वीज़ा कोन थो मिले पाकिस्तान जो त असांखे वीडियो कॉल ते तव्हां मुंहिंजे जी विज़िट करायो त पोइ मां उन्हनि खे 2 कलाक पूरा जेको आहे वीडियो कॉल ते सॼे मोहिंदरे जी विज़िट कराईंदो आहियां.
Unfortunately, bits and bytes are increasingly the only things that can easily cross a border that's so heavily militarized you can see the floodlights from space. Despite the 2 billion people who claim direct heritage from the Indus civilization, research and excavations are woefully underfunded. There's not a single university department anywhere devoted to it. For modern Indians, the question is whether the profound sense of connection to Mohenjo daro can translate to a better relationship with the Pakistanis living there now. For modern Pakistanis, the issue is how to embrace an ancient past that reaches across borders only decades old and does not quite fit a largely Muslim national ideology. Perhaps we might best think of the ancient Indus civilization as a Bronze Age supernova in the positive sense, scattering its precious elements throughout South Asia. And much further too, long Indus carnelian beads were prized in Mesopotamia. In fact, an Indus style of gold, carnelian, and lapis was popular throughout the ancient world. How far did ancient Indus ideas also travel? One thing that remains with me from my first visit to Mohenjo daro in 1972 was that it feels so ancient, so tied to tradition, and yet so open and welcoming of others.
We have so many villages all around. So there the people, elderly people, tell this story. Whenever a person wanted to settle inside Mohenjo daro, when he arrived with his family, the local people of Mohenjo daro, each of the house owner used to give him 1 brick. That this is a gift for you, 1 brick. So in this way, he collected so many hundreds and thousands of bricks from the local people living here. So in this way, he used to build in excellent way his house.
Brick sharing is just as important today. Like new immigrants to a city, tools like molecular analysis, DNA testing, and AI are opening whole new sectors of investigation. Properly resourced, they could make the coming years incredibly exciting for research. The box on what the ancient Indus civilization was all about has only just been opened. It could rewrite the history of the Indian subcontinent and the wider world beyond.